getting started a little early here. All right, here we go. What's up, everyone? This is Ryan here, and you are watching episode 3 of my Kotlin live stream Let's Build an App thingy, and it's more or less turned into me doing like a tiny bit of work on the project and then answering a bunch of questions, but I don't really mind that because at the end of the day, like, I'm doing this for you guys and girls out there, so it is what it is. But as usual, let's get started with the regular format. So first and foremost, where is my show notes? Lovely. Oh no, did I lose all my notes? I think I lost all my show notes. Oh no, there they are. I'm just an idiot. All right, let's get started here. So number one, if you're watching this, you probably know who I am by now, but my name is Ryan. I'm an intermediate Java Java/Android developer, and I'm learning Kotlin right now. So basically how this works is I will do like a really tiny little lesson on something which I see as like, as a Java developer, hey, this is a lot easier in Kotlin kind of thing. So we will be going over that, and today's lesson is going to be looking at Kotlin view binding, which I'm really excited about because view binding is without a doubt like one of the most annoying things ever in Android, at least previously. So we're going to look at how to really easily make that code just like single line level of simplicity. Anyways. Oh yeah, let's get that coffee going. So first and foremost, I just want to say I am not claiming to be an expert here in Kotlin. Like I say, this is me just sharing my learning experience. I do have experience with Android, and I've been a Java developer for a number of years, so I can kind of answer questions based on that. But let's not assume that Ryan's an expert in Kotlin, and if you see something in my Kotlin code that's wrong, please let me know. I would suggest you be respectful about it, but that's really up to you. And that's basically it. Before we get to the lesson, though, of course, we have to do the commercial. Let me just check the chat. Yeah. So main thing is if you would like the opportunity to basically get my sort of direct help other than just messaging me on Facebook or YouTube or joining the Slack channel, link down below, then I do have a Patreon set up where you can get some options to get sort of more direct help from me. And also have an option if you would like to advertise for one of the weekly live stream Q&As. So that's basically it. That's our commercial for today. And let's jump into the lesson on Kotlin view binding. And great, OBS Studio is not loading my screen. Thank you, OBS Studio. There we go. All right, let's get started here. So what I'm going to be talking about today is how to achieve sort of very syntactically friggin' awesome view binding code. And so what I kind of mean by that is, let's go ahead and open up an activity. Oh, that is totally allowed and not a class. There we go. All right, so now, you know, admit I'm kind of just typing this activity to hide what I'm about to show you. I don't actually generally use activities as views, but so if you're an Android developer, chances are at some time in your career... Whoa, what happened? That's not presentation mode, what? Sorry, this is totally Android Studio freaking out, not me this time. Okay, let's open that file I just had open. I'm not sure why it went away. There we go. And how do I get rid of this? Okay, you know what? Screw presentation mode for now. Okay, so basically what's going to go on is if you're an Android developer, chances are you have written code that says something like this. Text view, text view. I know this is Java and I'm writing in a Kotlin file, so it's going to scream at me, but text view equals text view, so you got to cast it because the find view by ID method returns. What was it? Yeah, it would be, Chris, I'm not even used to writing this anymore, but find view by id r.id.sumID. So anyways, the point that I'm trying to get at is chances are if you've basically done any Android development, you have had to deal with this kind of code polluting, not polluting, that's the wrong word, but just filling your activities, your fragments, your views with all kind of code like this. And when you want to add, for example, a listener, you would have to say something like text view dot, what would be, it's not giving me the autocomplete, and I use that a lot, but whatever, set, whatever, on click listener or something like that. Then you could do like an anonymous class, your new on click listener, blah blah blah. The point being, this code is kind of clunky to write for starters. It's also quite error prone. Like, what happens if you cast it to the wrong class? Well, it's going to crash. So, you know, just in general, we don't really like writing all of this kind of boilerplate. And over the years, there's been a couple of different ways to solve that problem. So you can solve it through data binding, which is a totally valid option. The only kind of drawback with data binding is if you're working with people that don't really know how it works, it's kind of a little bit daunting, but it's not super complicated. And then historically there was also Butterknife, which is a tool that was built by Jake Wharton. And essentially what Butterknife did is it just allowed you to sort of have like annotation-based view binding code. So that helped a lot, but you know, it was still kind of up in the air, like how should we really handle view binding code, and what's sort of an easy way? So this is something I was looking into myself when I was getting into Kotlin, because I thought, well, Kotlin's a new language, like I wonder, like, how do we even write this code in Kotlin was the first question I asked. And fortunately for me, I found out about the Android extensions plugin. So what we need to do is a couple of things. So first and foremost, in whatever sort of build, whatever module you're in, you're going to want to open up the build Gradle file. And then you're just going to want to make sure that at the top of your build Gradle file, and this is like, again, a module level file, you're going to want to add this Kotlin Android extensions plugin. So this is a Gradle plugin, and it basically expands the functionality of Gradle and your whole sort of tooling. And so what that's going to do is it's going to give you this nifty little thing, which I'll show you next, which is in the calculator fragment. So basically what we do, one of the things this Kotlin Android extensions things allows us to do is it basically creates this, or you might actually have to write this, add this in yourself. I'll post a link in the description box or whatever about sort of the actual guide to doing this. But basically how this works is once you've added this plugin to your Gradle file, let me just clean up this activity before I leave it. Oops, clean it up. Delete braces. Yeah, that's totally cleaning it up, Ryan. Okay, here we go. So, yep. Basically how this works is we can essentially import a synthetic version of our layout, our view's layout, whatever we're working with. So in this particular case, you can see we have this reference to the layout. The layout is up here, fragment calculator. Oops, and then, so we have, basically we use this extension to import our layout somehow. I don't know how this works under the hood, but it's super cool. And then this little asterisk here basically means that we want to basically get every view within the layout. So if I'm not mistaken, if I wanted to just import like one single view, maybe if I only needed to bind to one view, I think what you can do is you can actually add more specific, like I think what I can do is, for example, we've got button number 7. If for some reason I wanted to just add button number, yeah, you see you can add specific views to import. So we're going to use the asterisk because of course we want to be able to bind to the entire layout, and this app I'm demonstrating here happens to be a calculator. So naturally there's going to be a lot of view binding code. Now let me tell you, this is absolutely amazing. Look at how easy this is in Kotlin. So we come down here and basically, sorry, I was just looking, I can probably fix this code. Oh no, never mind. But yeah, so if we come down here, this is all the view binding code that I actually need to write. I don't need to do the find view by ID equals blah, 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 and then do the set on click listener. I can refer to these, basically these XML views as properties, which is a Kotlin thingy, as properties of this class. So that's super handy because that basically makes it so that, let's say I want to set an on-click listener to a button like I'm doing exactly here. All we have to do is, of course, we refer to the ID of the view as set in XML, and then we come in and basically get a hook to it by just typing the XML name, and that is all imported because of this import statement up here and because of the plugin. So this is super handy because here we have a calculator which has, like, normally writing the code necessary to basically set this calculator view up, that would normally be really annoying. It would be very verbose, and in this case we've boiled it down to an import statement and single lines to attach a listener. Now if you're wondering what this listener thing is up here, of course it's this object up here. And I'm still trying to figure out what the best way to sort of handle or create these listeners are, but for the time being this is basically what I've got set up. So when someone hits the button, the message gets sent to this listener up here. And then what we do is, so V is going to be the object which was clicked, the view which was clicked. And then once that gets clicked, we pass it to this function down here. The function's just going to check to see if we have like a nullable thing here. I won't talk too much about that, but we basically say if v.id equals the evaluate button, or like the equal sign, then we want to call a special method on the presenter. If it's the delete button, we also want to call a special method on the presenter. But otherwise, as you can see here, all we want to do is just tell the presenter, hey, an input button was clicked, you make the decision about it. And the reason why I kind of lay this thing out is normally you, like, for the most part, you're not going to want a whole lot of logic in your view, but in this particular case, this is so simple and so easy to write, particularly when I'm working with Kotlin, that I don't really mind that, yeah, we have like a tiny little logical decision occurring in the view. Oh no, we're breaking separation of concerns. But here's the thing, they're principles, and in this particular case, I could, I could basically just pass the ID into the presenter, but I kind of like this because it just makes things a little bit more legible. Anyways, so that was the lesson for today. So just to review really quickly, if you would like to basically write super easy view binding code in Kotlin, this is kind of an experimental feature, but what you can do is you can just add this plugin here, Kotlin Android Extensions. You import whatever view you're inflating. So in this particular case, we're inflating the view of the fragment. And then if you want to refer to all, basically, if you want to import all the different views, you can use this little asterisk, or you can import specific ones by typing the rest of the name. So for example, btn, whichever one I want to import. So that's basically the little Kotlin lesson for today. Let's have a quick look at the chat. What's up? Oh, we got Riaza joining us again, and Prativ, and Victor, and Renat. Yeah, that would be nice. One thing, immediately, I've got a comment from Renat, which is to the effect of, it would be nice if you could change the case. So, like for example, this is one thing I was actually thinking of. Is this almost grounds for me to change the way I write my XML IDs? And when I was thinking about that, yeah, maybe. Sorry, I have a hair in my mouth. I'm not particularly overly attached to, I like the way I have very consistent naming conventions for my XML, but if I have to change it to a different convention so that we can kind of, whatever. Here's how I would like to see this problem solved. I would like a special like Android XML attribute which allows you to set like an alternate name for the view, or I could just go ahead and start changing the way I name my XML IDs, but one of those solutions. But here's the thing, it's experimental stuff, so I'm not going to complain too much. Good point though. Let's see here. So Riaza could use some help. So basically, Riaza, if you want to get a hold of me, you can hop into the Slack channel. So there's a link in the description box below for the Slack channel. You can message me on Facebook or YouTube. I would suggest either pick the Slack channel or message me on Facebook. For some reason, YouTube doesn't always notify me when I have direct messages, which is kind of weird. And but really the Slack channel is the best place to get help, because it's not just me there. It's, you know, a bunch of great developers, and we can all try and help you. You know, at the end of the day, we all do this stuff for free for the most part. If you want to be guaranteed of my personal help, I do have a Patreon option for that, but I won't harp on that point. Or you can ask a question now, but yeah. It's not that I don't sort of like helping people directly. I do. It's just I get so many requests, and I get a lot of people asking me like, hey, can you look over my entire project or something like that? And it's kind of like, look, I want to help you, but, you know, I'm a busy guy. Look at the bags under my eyes. One of my eyes is like lazy now. Anyways, let's carry on here. So, why Kotlin? What I'm going to do, I'll answer one quick question here, because it'll be kind of hopefully a bit easier to answer now. And then we'll get into writing some code. But this is kind of a good question. Okay. And the question was by Victor. Victor asks, why Java? Well, actually, let me post the. I'll post the whole question, because you're kind of making a bit of an assumption, Victor. Now, I'm not saying your assumption is wrong. This was the actual comment that was posted. So Victor asks, why Kotlin? Java is more popular. So here's the thing. To begin with, you're going to hear a lot of people on either side of this argument basically say, Kotlin sucks, I'm going to stick with Java. Or you're going to hear like other people be like, Java sucks, like Kotlin is the new age, everything's going to run on Kotlin, and all that kind of attitude. And what I would suggest to people listening is that the truth is going to be somewhere in between all the extreme opinions about it. I'll try and give my fairly unbiased answer. So you're asking why Kotlin when Java is more popular? Well, okay, so for starters, why is Java more popular? It's a much older language. It's a very old language, and it's a multi-purpose language. So simply by way of the fact that Kotlin is a newer language, we're going to see a vastly greater number of code bases written in Java. This will be true probably for at least the next 5 years, I would say. Really what that's going to depend on is whether... as a quick tangent, I think the only way that Java is going to survive more than like 5 years, and I don't know this, I'm just giving you an opinion, is if it starts adding more features to the extent that makes it as useful as Kotlin. Anyways, why Kotlin when Java is more popular? I don't necessarily accept that Java is more popular in terms of developers and companies, because Kotlin is quite popular in Android, the sphere of Android, and so if it's, when you say it's more popular, it's going to depend on who you're with. Why would you switch to Kotlin might be a different question. I'm going to kind of rephrase the question, because and I'm going to kind of answer a different question, but why why switch to, oops, why switch, oh wow, I just can't spell today. Why switch to Kotlin over Java? So admittedly, that's not really the question you asked, but I think we've heard me ramble enough about popularity in that. Why would you switch to Kotlin over Java? So as someone who is a Java developer initially, and I've worked with it for 4 years, and I've seen Kotlin slowly grow, although I've only recently been writing a lot of Kotlin code, what I can tell you, I think what the spirit of Kotlin is it really is kind of an attempt to make a language which is fairly easy for Java developers to pick up, but to do a lot of things a lot better than how Java kind of does them. Now, a big issue about that is in order for it to be sort of a useful replacement to Java, it needs to be interoperable, which is something that Kotlin is. And what that basically means is that if you have a project, you could write part of it in Kotlin, part of it in Java, all of it in Kotlin, all of it in Java. It's interoperable. So I believe you can even have like a Kotlin class with Java code in it. I'm quite sure you can do that. Yeah, at the very least, you can call Java libraries in it. So the question then becomes, okay, well, basically you can do everything. So far, what I've seen is you can do everything you could do in Java, and you can do a couple more things, like, for example, what's a good example? Like data classes. But you can basically do more things in less time. And what I mean by less time is really like the example I just showed everyone here. Yeah, you could absolutely get a library, and you could solve this through a library. But in this particular case, well, in a sense, I am kind of using a plugin, which could be thought of as a library. But assuming that this eventually gets sort of just added in as a de facto part of the language, here we have a case where I don't really need to import sort of like a direct library. I can basically just, you know, handle the problem of view binding super easily in a very concise space. There's other things which sort of, you know, jump out as me as being pretty cool. Like, for example, if I open up the operator class here, so here I have sort of like a data class, which we've all written lots of these in Java, and they can be pretty damn annoying. And here I have a property which must get initiated sort of when the object first gets created. And the way that I initiate it is I assign it to the value of a function, sort of like when this object gets created, essentially. So there's just different little things here where, like, if you were to try and write this stuff in Java, you can do it. It's just, it's annoying to write. You can write faster, and there are more capabilities with the Kotlin language. Now, I'm not saying I'm going to quit Java, writing Java entirely. You know, Java really probably will be like an old friend to me, but here's the thing. If the situation becomes, here we have a language that does everything that Java does, and so far that seems to be the case. Maybe there are cases where that isn't so true, but I haven't seen them yet. Here we have a case where we can do everything we want to do in Java, except more, and then we can also do it faster. So that would kind of be my argument for adopting Kotlin. Now, Java still works great, and they're still updating it, so it's not a simple answer. Like, you'll get people who will give you Kotlin is garbage, Java is garbage kind of answers, and I think that's a ridiculous statement to make. Anyways, that's my ramble about Kotlin. Anyways, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to run a quick commercial break, and then we'll get to writing a bit of code. All right, so we do have, we've got some discussion going on, and people are pointing out So Prativ, you've got a question about internal modifiers in Kotlin and what the Java equivalent is. Unfortunately, listen, man, I've only been writing Kotlin code for like 3 weeks now. Like, I've written basically an application and a bit, but I can't really answer your question at this point. Hopefully later on. Yeah, so anyways, let's get started. So what I was planning to do today is we're going to kind of talk about use cases a little bit, and I'll also import the RxJava dependency into my project. And let's just kind of dive into doing that. Am I in code mode? Yes, I am. Okay. Oh, wow. Everything's all messed up for me fiddling around trying to figure out that presentation mode, which it works okay, but I don't like how it gets rid of the tabs. There must be some way to have the tabs still pop up or something, but whatever. So first and foremost, as I talked about before, I'm in the wrong class, or the wrong, let's see here. There we go, Catalyft. So as I talked about before, let's move this over to the other side. Move to right. We're going to be, this app, Catalyft, which I'm coding, is going to be a multi-module project. And basically what that means is, okay, we've got the standard app module up there. And then we've also got a data module, which you could think of as like model if you're into Model View Presenter. And then we also have domain, which is sort of a clean architecture topic. And this is kind of what we're going to be looking at today, is this little domain layer here. Now, I'm not necessarily going to give a sermon on clean architecture, but I'll kind of talk about it. So in any case, let's get started here. So the first thing I need to do is I'm going to be looking into using Kotlin coroutines to do what I'm about to do, essentially. But for the time being, I'm actually going to be building this application with RxJava because I'm used to RxJava. I know how it works. And the nice thing about sort of following this separation of concerns and doing a multi-module project is that I can swap things out very easily. If you're curious, like, a lot of people wonder, why am I so obsessive about separation of concerns? It's so that I can change things easily, among many other awesome benefits like testing and so forth. But most importantly, I'm going to be doing this multi-module project so that I can swap different parts of it out. Like, if I want to switch to using coroutines, yeah, give her. The thing is, when you apply separation of concerns, you can change one part, and that's not going to end up changing the other parts in some cases. So first things first, let's go to the build Gradle file. I can't remember if I actually added RxJava in here. I don't think I did, so let's go ahead and do that. That thing's in full screen mode here. Kotlin calculator. Okay, so we're just going to import some libraries. Let's do RxJava. And I don't think I need RxAndroid in this particular... Oh, I'm in the wrong build Gradle file. Let's go to the domain one. Yeah. So I'm not actually going to need RxAndroid in here because this won't contain the main thread scheduler. So that'll be adequate to get that working. Well, hopefully, in theory. And then we'll also add RxAndroid and RxJava to the app module. And any other things I want to add in here while I'm here? We can go ahead and add some testing libs in here. That'll help. So we're going to add like Mockito and basically stuff to allow us to run unit tests a little easier in Kotlin. Now, here's one of the, just a brief side note. I was really hoping that I could actually like build this on camera using test-driven development, and I will be writing tests off camera. But one major gripe I have right now with, I'm not really sure if this is the fault of Android Studio or a complication with Kotlin, but longer story shorter, for some reason writing unit tests and executing them in Kotlin appears to take a very long time to compile. The tests themselves run quickly, but I've had like, we're talking like 5-minute compile times, and I suspect this is maybe a bug or some issue, but that's basically why I'm not going to be writing tests and executing them as I build the application on camera, because it locks up for 5 minutes and I can't really do that live. But I am a big proponent of test-driven development. Okay, so we've added RxJava and we've added in our crap here. So let's just have a look and think about use cases. And I'm just going to open up some code for me to reference on the side here. Let's see what the most appropriate code will be. Let's go with Pos Trainer. We've got some more debate going on in the comment section, which is always good to see. That's what I really like, is when we've got a bunch of developers here and, you know, lots of different opinions, because when we have lots of different opinions, then we can kind of, you know, collect from a whole bunch of people and just have a good discussion. Anyways. Use case, okay. So we're going to see how easily I can write this in Kotlin. Okay, so what we're going to do, let's go ahead and open up domain. Sorry, I do apologize for the dead air, but listen, I'm sharing a coding session with you, so there's going to be a little bit of this. And so what I'm going to do, I'm just going to run a quick Gradle sync, so I'm not going to talk while that happens, and the stream might start lagging a little bit. Okay, so let's have a look at domain. So domain is kind of a difficult fish to fry. And what do I mean by that? So when we're thinking of like a clean architecture, let me pull up a diagram here. Whoa, I did not want to start that. There we go. Okay, so one of the things that is sort of a primary goal, I'm just going to see if I can navigate. No, it doesn't look like I can navigate Windows 10's photo viewer. God, I love it. So this is like my overarching goal. This is how I want to be building applications. And so in the middle here, we have this thing called use case / interactor. And I could put another slash in there and then say /domain, because domain is another term that gets used for this little area. But what I want to focus in on here is like, what goes in domain and why do we kind of use it? Because you could totally make the argument, if an application is simple enough, and this is kind of some higher level architecture talk here, but if an application is simple enough, you almost don't really need use cases. Like, for example, let me just reference my Kotlin calculator code over here. And this is a perfect example. So in this project, I actually got started doing a multi-project build, multi-module project, sorry. I just module and project and build and all these different things. My brain tends to mix them up. So originally what I did is I even had like a domain package. Let's see, can I go to presentation mode? Is it gonna behave? Okay, a little bit. So this is the calculator application, not Catalyft. So I actually had a package here where I was gonna start sort of writing use cases. And one of the things that I ran into is that, you know what? This application is so simple that I don't really need a use case. Why don't I need a use case? Because my entire data level gets boiled down to literally a single method call. So this was a case where I looked at this and said, you know, I really don't need a use case. I really don't, like, this is the use case, evaluate expression. This is all the information I need to know as far as the back end and the front ends are concerned. However, when an application starts becoming more complicated, then you want to start thinking about use cases. So what is a use case? Simply put, I think of it, it's a big topic, so I'm going to give you a definition and maybe some answers which are, we're talking about very abstract concepts here, and it's hard for me to capture everything in one analogy, more or less. But what I would say about domain and use cases, we want to be thinking at the high level, what does our application do? So it depends on what app we're talking about. So what does a calculator application do? Pretty much that. It evaluates expressions. So as you can see, not a very groundbreaking thing, but what happens when we get to a more complicated application? So here we have like a workout logging app. So this is Catalyft again. And now we get to start thinking, okay, this is a little more complicated problem domain. So if you're wondering about that term domain, why we call it domain, it's related to the problem domain. Now, the first person who talked about problem domain I learned problem domain from, described the problem domain as actually having more to do with the data of the problem you're trying to solve than the sort of things you do to that data. But I'm not saying that's wrong or right or which is more correct. I don't really have a clear answer on that. But we want to be thinking, okay, what are use cases? What use cases are what go in the domain layer, and what do use cases do? Let's write a couple. So the first thing is that I've made this class here, and this should not be a class. This should be a Kotlin file. So I'm going to delete that. I'm going to right click and go to new Kotlin file class, and we're going to call this use case. So this is going to be like an abstract, well, it's going to be an interface for now. Maybe better as an abstract class, but just in this particular case, I'm kind of a big fan of abstract classes. And so I'm actually just going to copy this thing from, actually, no, not that one. Let's copy the base use case here. And I'm actually sort of messing with my own naming conventions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Shift F6, and I'm actually going to call this use case because it's an interface. And then the actual implementations are going to go within the use case package right here. So what does use case look like? So we're going to say Control V because we copied and pasted it. So not accessible by imports in the new context. Not entirely sure what that means, but okay. Well, it seems to be working fine. So we've got base use case. And so once again, we're talking about things that the app does when it comes to use cases. So as you can see, I have an interface here, which is something that basically all of my use cases are going to inherit from or implement. And what is it? What do they do? Clean is just an RxJava thing. And full credit goes to my friend Raul Bitsi. He's got some amazing repositories, and I've basically heavily referenced them. But basically, this is a way to use RxJava to kind of temporarily, essentially what it, how can I explain this? Someone corrected me. I gave a basic explanation of this, and then someone kind of like gave me a more specific answer, and then I've forgotten what the answer is. But there's a this is just RxJava babble, but there's a difference between calling. You know, I'm not even going to talk about that right now. But just understand, this is like RxJava utility method for managing streams. And there's times when you don't necessarily want your RxJava stuff to be active, is what I will say. Anyways, let's just pretend that doesn't exist. But the most important thing here is when you're working with the use case, it should basically do something. So in this particular case, we have this function execute that every use case is going to implement. So obviously we're seeing that whatever a use case is, it's probably going to be fairly consistent. Let's build a couple of them. And I'm gonna, you know, I might end up changing a lot of this stuff. I'm just kind of, I really am building an app live here. So, but just to demonstrate, what's a good use case for a workout log? Let's say get workout history. So we're going to say class get workout history, colon. So this is how you achieve inheritance in Kotlin. And then we're going to say I use case. And maybe I've screwed up and made this thing. Does that need to be in the same package? I'm still getting used to visibility in Kotlin. Unresolved reference. Do I need to do that? Yeah, it's not recognizing I use case. Hey, we're off to a great start. So presumably this is going to be caused by... Do I need to make it public? That seems a little bit odd. Let me hop over to the other code and see why this is happening. So, interface. Base use case. Oh, I think it, I don't know if I'm not creating it. Yeah, that's the problem. I'm not creating it properly with the what do you call that? A generic type. They call it in Java. I'm not sure what you call it in Kotlin. So in this particular case, I haven't actually created a data object which I would like to use to represent. So what we're going to do is we're going to type iUseCase, and then we'll say workout, which is of course an object we haven't created, but then we can hit Alt-Enter. Then we can go create class workout. Now I'm actually going to create this in the data. How are we going to do this? It's going to return workouts, which would actually be... No, this thing is going to return a workout view model. So what we're going to do is let's go ahead and create that workout view model so that we can finish working here. So workout, let's add, I'm going to add a package to app. And so that's going to be view model. And packages aren't normally camel case. And so what we're going to do is I'm just going to right click, go to new Kotlin file, and we're going to call this, for now, I might change this name, but we're going to call this for now workout VM. Then we'll say class workout VM. I'm not really even going to bother designing it yet, but let's just create it so that we can kind of keep carrying on with our use case. Then I'm going to go to, what did I call that thing? Get workout history. Okay, so workout VM. And unresolved reference again. So there's obviously, so this is going to be from a different package. So probably what we need to do at this point is I need to go into my domain, and then I need to make sure that I compile the app module here. Just give me one moment here. I'm just going to switch to full webcam. Basically, when you're doing a multi-project build, you basically need to reference, I screwed it up again, a multi-module project. You need to make sure that your different modules can reference each other, and naturally in Android Studio, the way that you do that is with Gradle. So let's open up. Now it's a little bit tricky to sort this stuff out. It's very declarative. And I don't know why I'm looking in this one, because this one doesn't actually, sorry, just give me one moment here. The roadblock for the moment is I don't remember the exact Gradle thing to import a yeah, I'll just explain it when I get to it. Wow, not sure why GitHub is taking forever to load. How does that not have the... Oh. Sorry, folks. I think because I'm streaming, my internet browser is like crapping out, so I'm trying to look up code on GitHub and my pages aren't loading particularly well. Come on! There we go. Of course, I could probably just check the comments and someone will tell me, that's the thing I was looking for. Okay, sorry, so let's get back to reality here. So the thing I was trying to figure, the code I was looking was, so it's just like, which one are we in? Okay, this is really one thing I don't like about presentation view is that I don't even know what file I'm in. Let's go to view. Okay, here we go. So I'm in app, which is the one, no, I want to be in domain. I'm in the wrong project. Here we go. Okay, and then so this is the code I was looking at. Implementation, and then it's project. Where did it just go? Yeah, just project. Project. Oh, this is very fun and verbose to write. So compile app. Sorry, you have to understand that this is kind of difficult to be building code live and solving problems and forgetting how to write random snippets. Okay, there we go. So what I've done here, I know that took longer than it probably should have, but basically what I did here is I want to make it so that my domain module is capable of referencing the code in my app module and a couple other things. So in theory, if I sync now, which we're going to have a little bit of lag, hopefully I'll be able to reference the class I made in the use case, blah, blah, blah. We'll see in a second. And it didn't work. Okay, I'm not sure how I misspelled that, but project app. So why did that work there and not work? Did I misspell something? Project. Well, that should be implementation. Okay, well, you know what? I'm not going to sit here and bore everyone trying to sort out Gradle problems. So what we're going to do is we're pretty close to 7:30 anyway, so I'll just kind of jump into some Q&A if anyone has some questions. But yeah, this is the nature. Like sometimes when I do the live coding, things go very smoothly, and I'm able to get a bunch of stuff done. But the reality of writing applications is that you might spend, 4 hours figuring out why this one particular line works in one project and it doesn't work in the other. And that's just the nature of programming. But the thing about it is that I can't really sit here and run Gradle sync a whole bunch of times because it'll basically lag the stream out. So let's get to some Q&A. I can still talk about use cases and stuff like that if people are interested in. It should be... Degrelle is suggesting I check settings.gradle. I added it. Yeah, it is in there. Oh, is it because I'm using... Is it double? No, it's double quotes there. I don't know. That's very weird. So Degrelle is saying check the settings Gradle. The modules are included there, so I don't know exactly what's going on with this. Build. Yeah, I couldn't really tell you. That's odd. I don't know. I can't think of having to deal with an access modifier for a module, so I don't really know why that wouldn't work. I'm going to try one more Gradle sync and I'll clean and rebuild it, so stream's going to lag for a sec. Oh, maybe it's telling me that that app isn't building? Is that what? That's so weird. Yeah, I can't really... I don't even know, man. Any, yeah. Thank you. I got a compliment on my jacket. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I don't know. Well, you know what? Whatever. I'm not going to piss around with debugging Gradle for 20 minutes live. So let's open it up for some Q&A. I'm just going to run a quick commercial break. But if you have any questions, just in general, let me know and I'll see if I can help you. And we'll do that for maybe a half hour and then I'll call it a day. Okay, so I've got a question. This question is from Kareem. And the question is, will Google switch to Kotlin entirely? Probably not. That's basically my answer. Not for the next... Again, no one knows the answer to this except Google, but I would say not within the next 5 years, most likely. It's hard to say, but here's the thing. Google is, well, the Android team in particular, they are totally throwing their weight behind Kotlin. And so it does seem quite obvious that Google is encouraging people to start learning Kotlin. And that makes sense. Like the goal of Kotlin is basically, from my perspective, is to build a much better version of Java. So what I would say is that, in 5 years' time, 5 to 10 years, would we see an announcement where Google basically retires Java? Again, that's going to depend on how hard the developers of the Java language themselves try to improve Java. Because regardless of whether Kotlin is a better option, we can have that argument all we want. But at the end of the day, a valid point, which is one of the points that Victor, I believe, was kind of getting at, is that, well, he sort of phrased it like Kotlin was more popular, or sorry, Java was more popular. But the thing about Kotlin, I totally forgot the point I was making. Well, the point I was trying to make is that there's so many code bases written in Java, and there's so many expert Java developers out there that I really don't see in the really short term everyone trying to Google trying to rewrite everything in Kotlin. So what I would my answer to this question quite simply is, this is this is my opinion. I don't know, but my opinion would be Google appears to be encouraging devs to learn and use Kotlin, but it is too early to say when/if Kotlin will unseat Java as the de facto language. How I'll say is unseat Java as the, how can I phrase that, as the industry standard Java-like language. That's kind of a hard thing to really break down. Like language. So why I would say that Google is encouraging, and I'm more speaking of the Android team, which is of course a subsidiary, but they're throwing their weight behind Kotlin. So I would say if, it's going to be really useful to learn Kotlin in a nutshell. You are welcome, Andronicus. Yeah. All right, so next question. What do we got here? So we'll Google leave jacket. I've got kind of an off-topic question. Someone's asking me which city I live in. I live in Victoria, British Columbia, which is part of Canada. So I am a plaid-wearing hoser, which I'm sure none of you watching this stream understand what that reference is, but basically the reference is that Canadians tend to wear plaid, and I won't even talk about hoser. But anyways, yeah, I live in coastal BC. Yeah, I don't know, RespectTech was kindly suggesting some alternatives, but I don't know what's going on, because I have the issue that I was running into with my coding is that it's not resolving this statement here. I'm not sure if anyone's just joining me. It's not resolving this implementation project app, whatever you would call that in Kotlin command, which is really weird because I have a project right beside me that actually that works perfectly fine. So whatever, I just didn't really want to bother. But anyways, thanks for attempting to help there. And I don't know. That's the unfortunate thing is, like, I like doing the live stuff because I can interact with people, but every now and again you run into a situation where, you know, I'm not going to bore you guys and sit here trying to figure this out on camera. Yes, Canadians versus Russians in hockey. Yeah, so Devora is asking, can I talk about, can we discuss stuff that's in ModelView Presenter, or is this Kotlin related only? You can ask whatever you like about Android development here, man. I actually said this in the intro, like this is week number 3, maybe. Yeah, week number 3 of me actually writing a lot of Kotlin code. Like, I did not write a lot of Kotlin before this. I learned a little bit about it, but I'm just really not qualified to be the expert on Kotlin right now, so. Anyways. Yeah, ask away. Yes, it is Canada versus Russia. I'm not actually, I'll be honest, like, hockey is huge in Canada. Like, it is, technically our national sport is lacrosse, which probably a lot of you don't even know what lacrosse is. I don't know if anyone actually really gives a shit, but lacrosse is how it's spelled, and it's fairly similar to hockey. It's about as violent as hockey, I would say, except maybe there's fewer fist fights. But anyways, the thing about it is, so I grew up on the west coast of Canada, southwest coast, and what that means is, whereas most people think that the majority of Canada is like a frozen wasteland, which that's true, but where I live, like, to give you an idea, last year, or a couple years ago actually, I was doing a crappy outdoor delivery job. It was December 15th, and it was 12 degrees outside and sunny. Like, I was wearing a t-shirt. So I actually happen to live in part of Canada where most lakes don't freeze over. And so anyways, longer story shorter, hockey isn't actually that big in my area. I never had a hockey rink or anything like that. So I kind of missed out on the whole hockey experience, which is quite stereotypically Canadian. I do watch the Olympic hockey, but, you know. Anyways, let's get back to something important here. The Russian swear words, yeah. So Bushan, I got a question from Bushan. Why switch to Kotlin? I'm not gonna answer that just because I literally talked about that at the start of the show. So if you want to watch the recorded version when it's finished processing on my channel, you can check that out. I basically answered that exact question. So it's not an easy answer. It's really one of those things where you have to look at the big picture and think about a lot of things. But just in a nutshell, why should you switch to Kotlin? You can write things a lot faster. There doesn't seem to be any major drawbacks to it other than the fact that you're learning a new language. But it's, you know, I'm in week number 3, and yeah, admittedly, I have a horrible memory for, like, details. I have a great memory for big picture stuff, but for details, like, here's an example. I forgot how to... my brain does not remember things like this, like how to write implementation project, because that's not a picture I can hold in my head, essentially. So yeah, there's going to be some difficulty, as with learning any new language, but so far what I've observed with Kotlin is that you can write things a lot faster. It has support by incredibly talented developers, And it is very likely within the span of maybe 5 years, I won't say very likely, I would say it is somewhat likely that it will replace Java. Not entirely. I don't think Java will get entirely replaced even within 10 years. I don't know, but it's hard to say at that point, because in 5 years' time, we might be writing AI that write our applications for us and stuff like that. So I don't know. But yeah, more detailed answer earlier in the show. Yeah, Durrell mentioned that I might have something in app that's not compiling, and I think that's what the issue is too. It's not resolving. In fact, maybe I can solve this right now. Maybe it's this view model class. I don't know. I'm not going to mess with it, but I agree, Durrell. I think the issue is that it's not resolving because it's not compiling. I don't really see any other way that it could be acting up, but I don't immediately see the error. I don't, yeah. Who knows? I'll play with it later. What else have we got here? Andronicus enjoys my Russian swearing, apparently. I don't know. This is a subject I'm not sure about, because I've talked about this before. Like, I'm a fairly working class individual, and I'm capable of being very exceedingly formal and polite, because that used to be my job, but I naturally swear a lot. And swearing, the thing is, Canadians tend to swear a fair amount, and it's used as like emphasis on the conversation. But I'm not actually sure if I should keep doing that, because the way Google is going, or sorry, YouTube is going, is that like if you swear and stuff, they're going to take away your advertisements and stuff like that. And I'm not saying they're going to do that for me. Like, I don't have the traffic for them to even notice, but point being, I'm not sure if I should swear a whole bunch, but for the time being, suka bliet. That's my best Russian swear words. Also, another good one that I learned was a idye nachoy, but I don't actually speak Russian. What have we got here? Apparently, my Russian swearing is quite popular. I don't know why that's so funny to you guys, but whatever. Okay, so let's see, Devor. Oh, how do you handle, so Devor is asking, how do you handle screen orientation using Model View Presenter where the view is when you have subviews? Sorry, I'm just trying to unpack this question in my head. Well, I believe, I think I talked about this. Was it, Devor, were you asking me about this, or was it Renat? I feel like I talked about handling orientation changes yesterday quite a bit. Just for my own sake of sanity here, Devor, did you ask this question yesterday, or was that maybe Renat? Because I talked about this quite a lot. I'll post the question here just so people aren't left in the dark as to what the hell I'm talking about, but without pooling data from the repo. So I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I talked about this quite a bit yesterday because someone asked me this question. So how do you handle orientation changes using Model View Presenter? So the view is going to be activity or fragment containing other views. Now, the answer I gave yesterday was mostly along, and the video is available, was mostly along the lines of, I have a good idea of how I want to solve it and how I typically solve it in my applications. And basically what that involves is injecting my presenter kind of and model stuff into the fragment, and then calling setRetaininstance on the fragment, and basically using the activity as like a detachable, reconstructable container for everything else that should be able to persist on orientation changes. And so the way that you would kind of test this is what I did before. Do I have a project I could... I'm not sure if I have a project I could reference easily here. Well, again, like, so I'll maybe check the previous episode. Okay, so Devor, I basically got this exact question yesterday. So if you check the previous episode, I will put numbers on them, but it'll be episode 2, which I recorded yesterday. I actually gave kind of a long explanation of your question. So how do you handle orientation changes in Model View Presenter? Just really quickly, the way that I do it verbally, and then if you want to like more detailed answer, you can and some code, you can check that video. But in a nutshell, I deliberately don't use activities as the view, and the reason why I don't use activities as the view or anything else really is because they get destroyed a lot. Every time you turn the phone, of course, as you know, it destroys the activity unless you call a method which is, I forget what it's called, but it's like the activity version of this method down here, setRetaininstance, which doesn't appear to be suggested usage. So, and the idea, if I were actually, let me pull up the diagram. My goal with my architecture is basically this activity can do whatever it wants. It can get recreated, it can restart. But in the event that it just gets restarted, I want all of this stuff down here to basically exist. And the way that I want to achieve that is by detaching the fragment from the activity when the activity gets destroyed. And then you sorry, my voice is getting really hoarse right now. Excuse me. You basically, the goal is to decouple all of this stuff from the activity's life cycle in a nutshell. That's basically it. You want to pull stuff out of the activity life cycle and try and have it persist. And the way that you do that, yeah, watch the video. I know that's not the best answer, but fair enough. I did kind of answer this yesterday. What else have we got here? So RespectTech is asking a question. I can't really give you a great answer because security is really not my area of expertise, but so I have used the Android key store, and like I've published apps to the Google Play Store, and that requires you using this thing called key store, which is a way to digitally sign your applications. And I have done that before, and I could potentially make a tutorial about that because I remember it took me a little while to figure it out because the documentation didn't really explain what you had to do very clearly, but I couldn't really give a great answer on that. Why would I create? Why would onCreateOptions menu not be called in a fragment even after setting? Darrell, I'll get to your question in a moment. I don't know if I'll be able to answer this question. I'll babble for a second and maybe something useful will pop out of my mouth, but Andronicus, is that how you spell that? Yes. Andronicus asks, so why would onCreateOptions menu not be called in a fragment? I would need to see, do you have any code I can look at? Even if... what I would be inclined to say about this, I don't know the answer off the top of my head, but I'll look at the documentation really quickly here, but I don't know if I'll be able to get a valid answer here, but fragment set. Okay. So, oops, what happened here? Set has okay, why does it... I don't understand when I zoom in why it changes the location of... Like, bloody hell, that's annoying. Okay. No. There we go. Set has options menu. Okay, so you're calling set has options menu to true. So what does this actually say? This says... So this just tells us that it has a menu. Yeah, I'm not I would have to see code. I suspect the answer to this problem is related to either the fragment or the activity's life cycle and something getting kind of screwed up there, but I would have to see your code to really give a good answer on that. Sorry, man. I would look at the life cycle. When does... I wonder... let's just check this really quick here. Android full life cycle. Set options menu. Is this even... so as I... Okay, so if you've got this set to true... Yeah, I would definitely have to look at your code. Sorry if I'm yelling into the microphone. Sometimes this microphone cranks the volume up when it gets too close, so I apologize if that happens frequently. Yeah, sorry, man, I would have to see code before I could really give you an informed answer on that, but probably what's happening is maybe somehow you're referring to the wrong object, because in this particular situation, there must be some... Yeah, anyways, sorry, I can't really help more than that. All right, so I think this will be the last question last thing I talk about today. I'm not sure, I'll try and give a good answer here, but... All right, Mon Ami Darrell asks, yeah, that's going to be an interesting one. Yeah, that's a... I'm gonna... Let me just post the whole question. So that's going to be a fun one. I don't know if I'm going to be able to. So if I'm understanding this correctly, so we're saying, let's say you want to make the database the center of truth for your data, but you still want to go to the network. So immediately what I'm seeing is we're probably looking at some kind of a local and remote repository situation. And how would you prioritize that with RxJava? Yeah, that's getting into code which I just haven't really written yet. Like, let me show you as far as I've gotten, and I'll maybe talk, I'll just give my thoughts on it, but right off the bat, I don't think I have a clear answer. It's a very important question to ask, though, like, because at the end of the day, we're sort of dealing with clean architecture and that kind of thing. What did I call that? Event architecture? Just gonna check my repos. So yeah, right off the bat, I'm going to be disappointing everyone because I don't actually have an example of the code, but here's what I would kind of think about it with my little learning tool that I wrote here. Essentially, I don't know which RxJava operator you would use, but like the general idea that we're kind of trying to achieve here is that we've got two data sources potentially, or more than one at least. We've got, say, like a local service and a remote service. So again, if I pull up my diagram, this kind of thing going on. So I want you to think like network/cloud for remote, and then like database for local. And then sort of our use case is going to be like talking to that repository, which then abstracts these two things. And how would you actually write that in RxJava? Like presumably you would, so zip is an operator you can use to compose two streams together. So in this particular case, I'm sort of waiting for two responses, and then the output of that is going to be a response model. So I'm waiting for two results from two different kind of method calls, which are up here. Now, the thing I'm not familiar with in RxJava is like, what were these? There's those operators like, I believe there is an operator in RxJava which allows you to like preferentially treat one data source. I've never written that code, and I honestly forget what it's. I don't think I even learned what the name of that was, but I feel like I've seen that before. But that's really what we're trying to do here, just for the educational side of things for people watching who aren't necessarily RxJava experts. The problem we're trying to solve here is that very often in an application, you'll have a situation where you're talking to a remote database and a local database, or just a remote data source. We don't even have to say database. We just have to say some source of data, some I/O device. And so RxJava is one of the ways in which you can compose these things together. Why would we want to? Well, let's say, for example, you're using Facebook. Facebook is an easy example for people because what Facebook does is it will cache a certain amount of data on your phone. It'll store it, persist it on the device, so that when you're offline, you can still open up Facebook and like look at the last, you can see most of the messages you've had before. You can look at like some cached data. And that's better than giving no data at all to the user. And using RxJava, you can do neat things like you can say, let's give them the cache data first, and then as soon as the network responds with fresh data, update with that. So you can like prioritize data streams essentially using RxJava. Now how to exactly do that is some fairly deep RxJava stuff, and I just don't have the code handy, but super interesting topic. Yeah, that would be interesting. Okay, I think that's going to be just about it. If you like the show so far and you haven't already, please do me a favor, hit the like button down below. I'm going to wait around for maybe one more short question, but we're pretty close to 8 a.m. So I'm going to call it a day pretty quick. What I will talk about in the meantime is, so I was thinking of also doing this stream tomorrow morning as well. I don't think I'm going to do that just because it's, what I need to do is take a moment to actually finish off my Kotlin MVP calculator application, because that's actually the application I'll be using to teach a lot of Kotlin stuff, just because it's a simple app concept. And I also need to take some time to just sort of, I am learning things and it's fun doing the stream, but also at the same time, obviously we almost didn't get any coding done this time. So I just need to take some time to write some code and just keep improving my skills. But one thing, so I will be returning to the regular Q&A format every Sunday. So if you have questions you'd like to ask me, you can go ahead, join me on a given Sunday. I wanted to ask for the people watching, I was going to post this in the Facebook channel and the Slack channel, etc. But I wanted to kind of ask people, like, what if you could give me your time zone and maybe like a range of times when you would normally, what I want to know is when would you, in a given day, when would you normally watch this kind of thing? Like, for example, I'm probably a little bit weird because my brain sort of gradually reduces in capacity as the day moves on. So generally speaking, I would watch something like this in the morning. However, I know a lot of people tend to study a lot more in the evening or something like that. So I'd be happy to hear input on that. But yeah, we'll be back to the regular Q&A this Sunday. I don't think I'll do the stream tomorrow morning, but that's okay. Rahul is asking if I will ever have a session for animations. I'd like to say eventually. I would really love it if I could cover everything in Android, but there's just different things going on, because for starters, I really am more of a back-end person. So that doesn't mean that my user interfaces suck. It's just I'm really probably not the person you want to be learning that kind of stuff from. That is one thing where probably I would suggest maybe looking at courses or ebooks or something like that. I don't know. Because here's the thing. I really like learning and teaching back-end stuff, because what I find so awesome about doing the back-end stuff is that it's very logical. It makes sense to me. Whereas a lot of the user interface stuff, I don't want to make ugly user interfaces, but it's just a very declarative endeavor. And I'm just not overly interested in it. And over the years, I have admittedly said to people, oh yeah, I'll definitely do an animation tutorial series eventually. Well, it's not that I was lying when I said I wanted to do that. It's just what I've realized down the road is that, like, let me give you an example. My room database, let's build a room database app tutorial, that took me a month to build. So when I'm thinking, okay, what's the next tutorial I'm going to do, I'm potentially thinking of something which could take weeks or months to research and build and write the code and record the footage and upload it and edit it and research it. All of those different things take an incredibly long time. Now, when it comes to animations, it's a topic where there's not so much reasoning that I can kind of, I don't know, it's hard to describe, but longer story shorter, what I'm trying to tell you is that as much as I'm probably not going to be able to do an animation tutorial. If I do animation stuff, it will probably be live built, and it's definitely in the back of my mind. I'm just trying to be realistic here. Like, I can't do these tutorials all day, and unfortunately, I don't have very much spare time. Because I release most of my stuff for free. So maybe down the road. All right, everyone. So that's going to be it for today. I hope you enjoyed the show. A little, it wasn't the best. I certainly liked the previous two streams a lot better, and I felt like we covered a lot more ground there. But that's okay. I ran into an annoying issue, but we did get some decent discussion going, and that's basically it. Thank you for joining me. I'm going to go pass out for a couple hours and then head to work after that. So thanks for watching. Peace out.